welcome to The Diplomat. 2018 is coming to an end and the new year 2019 is fast approaching. Since our very first episode in June, we have welcomed ambassadors from Europe, Asia, South America, and all other parts of the world every week to get into a glimpse of their insights and visions. We have also met with a number of former diplomats and also other experts to delve deeper into some of the biggest issues surrounding the Korean Peninsula. To wrap up the year 2018, let's meet with this year's guest of The Diplomat once again. Hello and welcome to The Diplomat. Today on the Diplomat, we are going to meet Latvia's ambassador, Guatemalan ambassador, Spanish ambassador, Mexican ambassador to Korea for the cooperation between the two nations.
Since the very first episode in June, The Diplomat has interviewed ambassadors from 22 countries and 8 related officials. This program has also highlighted the many ways these guests have worked to strengthen their country's political, economic, diplomatic, and cultural ties with Korea.
Curiosity, but you know this.
The ambassadors talked about their country's cultures and histories, as well as the historical similarities they share with Korea, which in some cases included an independence struggle, national division, and democratization. Also, they actively promoted their cultures in Korea through things like food and cinema.
I think that we should go there, and I
think you know.
To install like a dialogue.
2018 has been such an eventful year for Korea. The ambassadors explained the emotions they share with Koreans and how happy they are for the country. We asked each of them what was the year's most memorable moment.
Issues of bilateral.
have been actually in more than 10 schools, and I'm very impressed, actually very impressed. They know already quite a lot about Finland, about EU. They are well prepared, they have very smart questions.
Gastronomics, try many traditional food of Korea.
Many young people in New Zealand find Korea very cool. You probably know this, it's a worldwide phenomenon.
Right.
It's not just BTS.
In the first week that I arrived in Seoul last year, invited me to this EXO concert. I put it on my Facebook page, and just like that, in Indonesia, all the chat rooms and social media in Indonesia, it became viral.
Perhaps when I had a chance to greet the Pope Francis, an unforgettable moment, no doubt.
When I presented my letters of credence to President Moon, and he will never forget, because I was the first ambassador ever to present letters of credential to him.
For some, Korea was their first or last post as a diplomat, so they shared their first impressions of the country as well as their last messages to the Korean people.
How does it feel to have started your term in such a special year?
Wow, of course it is very honor for me because especially this year is a very important year, 60th anniversary. Being ambassador at this year, well, it is very honor for me.
Well, South Korea is one of my favorite countries in the world. So I've been very excited to be here. And I'm very happy to say that in this past year, we've had very good developments in both political as well as public diplomacy, as well as other substantive issues.
My first impression was that I was very impressed to see how modern and how far you have thinking about the history. It's impressive to see both the country and the city of Seoul and all around how far this society has reached in just a few decades.
I heard that Korea is the last post for you as a diplomat.
Ambassador has to be able to serve to both countries, not only to his country.
Oh my goodness. Perhaps I would like to be remembered as a good friend. would be nice to be remembered as a good friend, an Argentine good friend of Korea.
I'm sure they will be remember you as a good friend.
Hopefully, hopefully.
Prime Minister Maloney, thank you for the great
Also,
speech
in
and
7 special episodes, this program has covered a range of important issues and events in Korea, such as the Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity, the September 2018 Inter-Korean Summit, and the reunions of war-separated families.
War-separated families reunited.
I don't think any of us who haven't experienced it can imagine what it's like to be separated.
This year, The Diplomat presented issues and stories surrounding the Korean Peninsula, ranging from politics to the economy, culture, exchange, and cooperation. But there's no doubt the biggest issue has been peace. Now, we'll take one more look at that.
What do you think about all of these positive changes on the Korean Peninsula?
Well, it is, and I think everyone will recognize that it is an extremely positive development.
I remember when I arrived here, the tensions were very high, talk of preemptive strikes, bloody nose strikes, but now we're moving into a phase of negotiations. We very much welcome that.
Especially last year, when tensions were very high, feelings were not so positive. And since President Moon Chung-in became here a president, situation has changed, drastically, I would say, not positive.
We have welcomed the efforts of the President and the government of Korea to take steps towards peace and denuclearization this year. It's been remarkable to see the progress that's been made to date.
We are very happy and that things are moving in the right direction. And we must congratulate and felicitate President Moon.
The government of South Korea is in a leadership position, and I hope they continue to play it.
Regardless of all the obstacles and challenges, we are still very positive, and we think these developments are to the good of the region and the world as a whole.
Prepare for peace. Okay? Culture peace is very, very important because we, for old and young generation in South Korea, have been so much socialized by the culture of Cold War. Okay? Therefore, it is extremely for us to get away from the kinds of trapping structure. Therefore, I would strongly urge young generations to be acquainted with the culture peace, the more open and tolerant mind. Okay? In that way, we can achieve peace on the Korean Peninsula.
I believe that these hopes are not far-fetched and not unrealistic. They are attainable. The hopes of peace in the Korean Peninsula, denuclearization, normal ongoing relations between the two sides, and hopefully leading to reunification in the future.
Our guest's vision and remarks really showed the whole world is praying for peace on the Korean Peninsula. This year, many spoke of a spring on the Korean Peninsula and also dared to dream of a possible unification. Some 30 years ago, one country in Europe had gone through a very similar experience. I'm talking about Germany. So for now, let's learn more about Germany's reunification with the German ambassador to Korea, Stephan Auer. And let's think about the future of Korea as well. Ambassador, we would like to hear more about Germany's reunification story from you. What were the most important causes of Germany's reunification?
I think there are many causes. There are many circumstances which converged and which opened that window of opportunity I spoke of. I think, first of all, it was the people's will, the desire of East Germans who took to the streets, that they demanded for their political rights, for political reforms, and then finally also they demanded unification. That was one cause. The second cause, I think, was that at that time the Soviet Union was in decline. And most importantly, the new leadership of the Soviet Union, in particular Mikhail Gorbachev, he implemented a new policy glasnost and perestroika, and he lifted the so-called Brezhnev doctrine, which enabled, they said, would legitimize them to intervene in their communist satellite states of the Eastern Bloc. So there wasn't a danger, a risk that the Soviet Union would interfere in East Germany. And thirdly, I think what was also very important was the support West Germany became from the United States of America, and that West Germany was firmly embedded in Euro-Atlantic structures, that is NATO and the European Union, which made it acceptable for our neighbors to have a unified Germany, a stronger, a bigger Germany in the center of Europe.
I see. What was the atmosphere like in your country before and after unification?
Unification came about very surprisingly. It was only in 1989 that East Germans took to the streets and called for political reforms, for their political rights, in these famous Monday demonstrations. They started in Leipzig and then spread over the country. At the same time, there was also a parallel movement of East Germans fleeing East Germany through Hungary, where the Iron Curtain became more porous, or via West German embassies in the Eastern Soviet bloc. That was, created a lot of hopes, aspirations from the East on the East German side. At the same time, there was also concern and anxiety. We didn't know at that time how would the East German communist regime react to that? How would the Soviet Union react to that? Would they clamp down militarily or with police, and would there be violence on the streets? So there was a lot of anxiety before unification. And then came the 9th of November 1989, which, was a fantastic moment in German history when the wall came down. And after that, I would say that there was a sense, or even on that night, a sense of euphoria in East and West Germany. Everybody was so happy to have witnessed the coming down of the wall, which separated East and West Germany, where so many people have lost their lives trying to escape the communist regime, fleeing and trying to make it over the wall to West Germany. So there was a lot of euphoria, and that, of course, also helped and encouraged wise and very courageous political decisions. But then, after a certain while, people also realized that they had an incredible moment of luck, a window of opportunity that opened during that time, which could have closed very quickly. So there was a sense of gratitude that we Germans were allowed again to live in unity in a unified country after 2 world wars, which were initiated by the Germans, which we have brought so much suffering to others, to our neighbors. So there was a sense of gratitude, but also a sense of relief that the divide of East and West, which ran right through Germany, through Europe, was overcome. That it was not only the overcoming of the division of Germany, but also of Europe, which could have also contributed to overcome the East-West confrontation.
Could you share with us your personal feeling at that moment of reunification?
Yes, I've very often thought about this moment, and at that time I was, a young diplomat in Great Britain, and I just couldn't believe what was going on, to be honest. I thought that I really kept my fingers crossed that this process would end peacefully. Because you have to keep in mind that at that time we were living really on the big divide between 2 antagonistic, highly militarized blocs, the communist totalitarian bloc and the free democratic bloc in the West. And this line of division went right through Germany. and an upheaval in East Germany, a destabilization of East Germany, what would that mean for this order? And nobody had experienced the peaceful reunification of a highly industrialized country, a highly developed society. So there was a lot of anxiety. But as I said, there was a lot of relief also at the same time when everything came about in a peaceful and democratic way. So these were more or less my feelings when I saw the developments going on. And I personally had crossed East Germany several times to go to West Berlin through East Germany. And I saw this totalitarian regime, the effects they had on East Germans. And it was natural that this totalitarian regime couldn't continue the way it continued. So I was full of happiness and relief to see that also East Germans would be able to benefit of the political, economic rights we had in West Germany.
So it's been 28 years since Germany achieved unification, and the country made huge progress boosting economy output, investing in infrastructure and more. But there are unresolved issues remaining.
Indeed, there are still some unresolved issues. We have made a lot of progress, definitely, but there's still, I think, the German unification has not been totally accomplished. There's still a divergence of productivity. There's a divergence of the salary and also of the pensions between East and West. But I think it is also difficult to speak of the East because also in the East there were different developments. We have highly successful economic powerhouses and regions in East Germany, for instance in Dresden or in the Saxony. So you can't speak generally of the East. There are very successful economic developments there. But I think at the end of the day, we will need another generation, that is to say not another generation, but a whole generation to overcome the implications of a separated nation which has been separated for 4 decades. But I think we are on our way. We've done a lot of progress. And I think the aim cannot be to level lives in East and West Germany. We are a federal state with differences of culture, of mentality. There are differences of culture and mentalities between the North and the South. And they are proud of it. And there are also differences of mentality and culture between the East and the West, and within the East and within the West. So it's very difficult to say, that we want to overcome everything. We should be proud of our diverse cultural identities in the different regions.
So respect the differences.
Absolutely, absolutely.
German unification has been a great success story with a peaceful and democratic process. Although there are differences between Korea and Germany that need to be understood, what do you think Korea should learn from the German model?
As I said, I think it is very, very difficult to compare 2 different situations. Our division hasn't lasted for that long. We didn't wage a war. We had a lot of exchanges, contacts between East and West Germans. The geopolitical situation is a different one. We had the Soviet Union in decline. But if there are lessons to learn, then I think dialogue is very important, much more important than confrontation. It's much better than confrontation. A dialogue based on values, on democracy, on human rights, respect of human rights. I think that is very important. And exchanges, people-to-people contact. That was, I think, one of the most important elements which prompted the demonstrations in East Germany, because East Germans saw how West Germans, their brothers and sisters, lived on the other side of the wall. And they had aspirations to live the same way, democratic, free without the abuse of human rights.
From your answers, I learned that there's a one keyword, which is people. Then how should the Korean citizen prepare for unification?
Oh, that's very, very difficult. I think the most important thing is that be prepared, because it will come by surprise, but there's no master plan. And I think it is very important to keep up the interest in North Korean issues, to engage in people-to-people contact once it is possible, to engage yourself in humanitarian projects and aid to North Koreans, because I think that is very important to promote understanding between the two sides, to keep up the sense of being one nation, and to counter this ideological debate, you know. I think at the end of the day, we are all human beings with the same rights, political rights, human rights, and with the same economic desires.
We have highlighted Korea's relations with the world, as well as political, diplomatic, and cultural issues occurring in the countries with 13 ambassadors and former diplomats, and also other experts in the field. We will continue our efforts next year to help develop Korea's relations with the rest of the world, and also for mutual prosperity. That's all for the year-end special edition of The Diplomat. To wrap up our show, we have the messages from ambassadors and also civilian diplomatic envoys. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next year.
I am more than pleased with the latest development on the Korean Peninsula, which will affect its future. And I would like to wish all the best to Korean people on their way to ease the tension on Korean Peninsula and to come to amicable solution of the situation here. I am sure that people of Korea will be able to manage it in the best possible time.
Well, it has been a year full of events on the Korean Peninsula. It's been very exciting, very interesting, but also very positive, with many positive signs, at least compared to last year. Even though there's still some way to go, we absolutely hope that the positive development and the dialogue will continue, and that someday, in not too distant future, that there will be a full peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Because there are no solutions, no development if people are not talking. But it's half step. And within quite reasonable framework of the time, indeed, Korean Peninsula will become as a zone of complete peace, without no nuclear weapons, without no missiles. So this is my wish for Korea.
그리고 올해는 이제 뭐 남북 정상회담도 계속 이어지고 남북 관계가 굉장히 좋아지고 있는 그런 상황이기 때문에 더욱더 좀 뜻깊은 그런 날이지 않을까 싶어요. 그러니까 한국 통일은 사실 독일처럼 할 필요는 없고 어떻게 될지도 아무도 모르지만 정말 좀 많은 그런 뭐라 해야 되나 약간 좀 좋은 느낌 받았으면 좋겠고 평화로운 그런 통일이 나중에 언제 될지 모르겠지만 이어지기를. 네.
저는 그러니까 90년도에 그 독일이 그 통일이 됐는데 그 통일되기 전 10년을 독일에서 생활하면서 그 당시에는 이 지구상에 딱 두 나라가 분단 국가였었는데 한국과 독일 통일이 되는 것을 보면서 정말 너무 기뻤습니다. 그리고 우리도 빨리 이제 통일이 됐으면 좋겠다 이렇게 생각을 많이 했었는데 갑자기 지금 한국이 상황이 지금 상당히 그 1년 사이에 급변을 해서 지금 많은 사람들이 그 통일에 대한 그런 그 희망을 굉장히 많이 가지고 있고 직접적으로 또 북한을 가보니까 북한 주민들도 통일을 상당히 염원하고 있고 이 통일이 멀지 않았구나라는 그런 생각을 해봅니다. 지금 그 남과 북이 활발하게 교류를 하고 있는데 어쨌든 그 정상회담이 성공적으로 잘 이루어져서 모든 사람들이 염원하는 그런 통일이 속해 왔으면 좋겠습니다.